All right, welcome in to a Thursday edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered here by Go Chevrolet, as we are every single day. Get over and check out our friends over at Go online at GEAUX. Chevrolet.com. You can also find them on the corner of Sherwood Forest and Florida Boulevard for Go Express Auto Sales if you're looking for a used car from our friends over at Go. We're going to have an abbreviated show for you here on this Thursday morning. We'll be back with you this morning at some point here as Shay Dixon will be coming through, and we will talk recruiting this morning with Shay. But we have just some business to tend to on this morning at 8 o'clock, 8:15, that we got to get out of here for. But we are going to talk to Vernel Singleton, who is and now an LSU graduate and was the forward alongside Shaquille O'Neal. While he played here. A quick Google search of Vernel Singleton will tell you what he's been up to now. I'm trying to I kind of asked the room and haven't even prepped Vernel on this. I wonder how you ask him about life after basketball.
So did you know you could do it after the team showers? Did you feel pretty good about yourself?
So if you don't know, I think Big Vern, it's well known around these parts, has gone into adult film after
Sounds fun.
After a time in college basketball. I think he gave acting. If you remember the show Eddie, which featured the movie Eddie, which featured Whoopi Goldberg as the coach of the New York Knicks.
I'll bet she loved that role.
Where I believe it was incredible. It was incredibly bad of how bad of a movie it was. But Vernel was like one of the lead actors in that movie, where he played alongside. He played alongside Whoopi. Yeah, so I don't know, man. We're gonna be dancing around this thing. It's gonna be dancing around this thing.
Do you
coming
want to
up
guess
here.
its Rotten Tomatoes score?
Do you have it up in front of you? Golly, I mean, is there negative?
No, but it's damn near close.
Like 10.
17.
Bro, it was.
You sat through the whole thing?
Just because of Vernel.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was a kid. You know what I mean? So the only thing that I wanted to see, because I was. I was infatuated by these LSU basketball teams when I was a kid growing up. I mean, Vernel Singleton, Jamie Brandon, Maurice Williamson, obviously Shaq and Stanley and Chris Jackson, Mahmoud, Abdul Rauf, Ricky Blanton, like all that era of LSU basketball, just like as my childhood brain is trapped in that period where, I mean, and Vernel Singleton, I mean, he wore the Snoopy Band-Aid on his shoulder.
This is what you remember, like everything. Like
everything.
It's locked into your brain
everything.
Forever. Yeah.
Bro, like he was a high flyer. Like before, like that, he was probably like LSU's that I remember. I know that they're like the Cookie Man or, like the 81 team had some guys that could get up. But the guy that I remember the first time at LSU that was like a rim rocker, you know what I mean? Like a dude that just like attacked the rim and would dunk on somebody was Vernel Singleton. I mean, like, he would put it on your head. And now
he's
life after basketball has been good to him, bro. It's been good.
Getting a lot
of good. It's been good to him. All right, so we'll talk to Vernel. He just graduated from LSU, which is why we're really having him on. A long time after he finished his days here in Baton Rouge, he walked across the stage earlier this summer and was able to collect a degree. So we'll obviously talk to him about how that's going. So we're going to be brief here this morning. I'm sorry about that. We're going to have to get out of here at 8 o'clock. Stewie's got class. Lloyd's got some production work he's working on. And Katie and I got to get to a meeting across town. So we will be back at some point today and do some content on recruiting. Shay will come in here. Yesterday was wild, too. We got a really cool project that we're working on some all-access type stuff with Woodlawn and Zachary gearing up for their big high school game coming up on October 6th that we're really excited about. So we just got a lot of stuff going on over here. So we will we'll keep you up to date with everything. But yesterday, LSU football, obviously, in the news cycle once again as special teams coach Brian Polian spoke to the media and was given a little insight to that kicking position, that place kicking position, some of the special teams openings that are up for competition. And he did recognize, as we've talked a lot about here on this show, and I've heard people talk about it on other platforms and on other shows about LSU special teams. LSU's been very spoiled over the last couple of years from a place kicking and a field goal kicking situation with Cade York and even going back to Cole Tracy. Those two guys were fantastic. They were guys that you could really trust with the game on the line, with incredible accuracy and distance that you could put them out there with, and they would routinely come through for you. You see how much of a luxury that is in college football, as Polian kind of alluded to yesterday. A lot of that competition is still open. Now, it looks like Jay Bramblett is going to be the punter, or in fact, Bramblett is the punter, as that was announced. But it was good to hear that Peyton Todd's had a nice month, a nice couple of last weeks here, as he's catching on and seems like he's, going to be bought in by not winning the job, and at least, kind of staying in tune and staying engaged into the program. But from a place-kicking standpoint, it was interesting to hear that Polian said that Ramos right now would probably be the leader. He did say that Dibbert has come on over the last couple of practices, the true freshman who we've talked about out of the Midwest, who was, recruited by the last coaching staff and the current coaching staff was able to keep and hang on to. But, as he talked more about it, man, this is still a position that they still are evaluating, and they're still having to go through a lot of competition and a lot of evaluation and analysis of trying to get to a kicker. And that's a sticky spot at this point in the season for coaches. You would obviously love to have that figured out, just because of how important that is to the overall success of the team. So it was interesting also here, some kickoff, punt return duties that are being divvied up. It was Seven Banks was a name that I thought jumped out at punt returner. It was Malik Neighbors and Sage Ryan, obviously, and Polian told the story about how Ryan ended up back there, kind of going back and looking at his high school film where, we've talked about his days at LCA at Lafayette Christian. He did everything. He was a dominant DB, and it was obvious that people wanted to sign him to play on the defensive side of the ball. But his high school highlight film from offense is, it's pretty damn good, man. It's punt return, kick return, catching, running, quarterback keep. He was dynamic, and to see him with the ball in his hand, as Polian described yesterday, he's very natural, right? He's very natural back there with the catch. He can shake you up, and he's got good speed. So, personally, I'd love to see him back there, because I just think that would be a cool role for him, right? It sounds like Malik Neighbors is a guy that they really trust just by putting the ball in his hand. Just put the ball in his hand and just see what happens. But like I said, Seven Banks' name came up as a punt returner too, which was interesting, and would be cool to see him back there as well. So they've got really good options, obviously, at that position. Kickoff return, Armani Goodwin's name came up. Who else did he bring up? He brought up Armani Goodwin. He also talked about Malik Neighbors. He had Malik Neighbors' name as one. He also talked about Evan Frangione as being a choice back there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing shakes out from a special team standpoint. We will also talk a little bit about Brian Driscoll going on Crane and Company yesterday and just going torched, just
scorched earth.
Just torching the place, man, on Brian Kelly. Came across as if he missed him. Came across as if he was a little jaded. But we'll talk about what Driscoll said about LSU. A lot of people asking what's going on with Mintz. And Mintzy and I have been exchanging text messages since very early this morning. I talked to him yesterday. Mintz is a nervous wreck. He's a wreck right now with Whit down yesterday inside of the Barstool Studios and the offices up in New York City, where Mintzy made a call to Stewie, and I don't want to get too much into it. There's probably a lot of people out there that know these characters and figures better than I do, so I don't want to try to explain, where they come from, what shows they're on, what's going on. But Prez had a conflict with somebody. Mintz called the person. Mintz said he called that person to tell that person that he had the Prez's back. Once Prez found out about that, he's pissed off about it. He's calling Mincy out on social media. He's calling him out on podcasts. Mincy has, in return, gone and deleted texts from yesterday. Then he's put together videos. It's just a lot of chaos right now happening around Ben Mintz. I believe this is for content purposes. I really do. I kind of get that feeling for Mintz, but Mintz, I can tell, has the feeling of, it kind of feels like it's a bit, but I don't know if it's a bit. So, I could just say that we're pulling for our guy. I think they've got his back up against the wall, but like I told him this morning, bro, it's an opportunity for a great comeback, and I think that Portnoy's messing with him. I mean, Mintz has done too much good work for Barstool just to be left on the roadside right here after some simple mistake that he made yesterday, right? I mean, I'm not siding with Mincy. I mean, I kind of get like, bro, I mean, why did you do that? And even he's like, man, it was a huge mistake. I shouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have called the guy. Shouldn't have reached out to him. But I do believe, Mintz, that he was reaching out with the intention of letting the guy know, like, he's team Barstool, team Portnoy. And, like, don't be messing with his boss. And I kind of believe that Portnoy loves an opportunity to kind of rile Mintz up, right? To kind of mess with him a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. But, I mean, it would shock me. It would stop me in my tracks if they made some type of move on him at Barstool because of yesterday. I can't see that. I cannot envision them, like, removing him from Barstool. Maybe this, like I told him, maybe this is, like, kind of the start of the move to get you back down to the South. And let you kind of like run your portion, your corner of the Barstool store from where you're known most in the South.
About to start.
Absolutely, man. Put him in New Orleans. Let him live in New Orleans. Let him run his corner of the Barstool section from the South. And let him go, grow the brand. But Mintz is a good friend, and he's obviously very panicked right now. And I'm not by any means laughing, but, Mintz, when he gets into a certain mind state, he says some really funny stuff. And right now, he's on one. And because of our partnership with Caesars Sportsbook, who we love, and Caesars, of course, giving us a great opportunity to go to the LSU Florida State game, giving you a great opportunity to go to the LSU Florida State game. All you got to do is hit that QR code in the top right of the screen over here.
There we go.
And sign up. LSU, JCLSU15 is the promo code. You get entered to win, which the winner will be chosen next week for 4 tickets to LSU Florida State. But because of our partnership with Caesars, which we love, Mincy can't come on the show anymore. We would love to have him on to kind of explain just what the hell's going on and his mindset. But even he said if he was allowed to come on the air right now, he's probably just going to sit it out because, no PR is probably the best PR right now for Mincy. Anytime he opens his mouth or says anything, I think he's going to be a marked man. But I think he'll be all right. I think he'll be all right.
He went on the apology tour. He did a lot in about a span of 15 minutes.
He did.
Mincy's everywhere.
He did, bro. I told him, bro, you were on a treadmill running backwards right now.
Just tried my best. Sometimes the best thing to do when you're in a hole, stop digging. But the only thing that makes you nervous about this is if you know Portnoy's history is once you decide, decides,
quick hook.
There's a line of delineation. Once you get on one side, you go up on all you end up on is a champagne bottle that he drinks. So this is a man that knows how to make content, though. And if I'd imagine that the previous relationship that he's had with Mintz and how it all started, and he knows Mincy probably kind of in the same vein that we know Mintz. He's like, watch what I can do to Ben Mintz in about 15 seconds.
Right.
And so that's what I'm hoping it is because Ben Mintz deserves to be exactly where he is right now, and he's one of a kind. So he fits the Barstool just house of, like, let's gather all of the cast of characters we can and put them in one room. And, boy, I mean, that's where Ben Mintz thrives. So I would be shocked if he if he got the like big time hook.
I'm with you. Remember our friends over at Southern Eye Center of Baton Rouge. They're located on Jefferson Highway. Stop in and see them. If you mention the show, you can save yourself up to 25% on name brand sunglasses. If you're getting ready for fall and getting ready for football season and you need to go pick up some shades or you need to get your eyes tested, go check out our friends over at Southern Eye Center of Baton Rouge, located, as we said, on Jefferson Highway. Great spread over there on Southern Eye Center, at the campus over there. This guy, Brian Driscoll, yesterday is pissed. I mean, he is mad. If you have not seen this, our friends Jake Crane and Crane and Company had a segment yesterday where they brought on Brian Driscoll, who is the publisher of Irish Breakdown, which covers Notre Dame football and recruiting. He's also a former college wide receiver and quarterbacks coach, as he includes in his bio over at Twitter.
I didn't know you were going to put coach on the end of that. I was like, there is no way.
How about this guy? Former signal caller, Brian Driscoll.
Yeah.
Driscoll claims that he wanted Kelly gone from South Bend after 2020. Was on with Crane and Company yesterday, just going crazy about what Brian Kelly has left behind and the dumpster fire that he's taken over in Baton Rouge at LSU. I don't know, man. I got to get the feeling now from the Notre Dame side that there's a little bit of panic starting to set in up there in South Bend with the Irish faithful. I love Marcus Freeman, man. I remember he came down to Baton Rouge a couple of years ago. He was interviewing for the defensive coordinator job that ultimately went to Bo Pelini.
Yeah.
And I think Freeman and his wife kind of recognized the handwriting on the wall and saw
Durante
Jones, you're right. But they kind of saw the writing on the wall, like this ship has sunk. You know, I mean, if they're not off by now, you're going to need some life vests to get out of here by the next time that they show up. And I think Marcus and his wife decided to take a job which actually was for less money in South Bend with Notre Dame with the same position. And look, Marcus Freeman as a defensive coordinator at that time was the most popular name on the board. He was the Dave Aranda of the group when Aranda's name was kind of being circled for LSU's gig back in 2016. And he was the one on the board that kind of looked, he was just different from everyone else. If you remember when they missed on Freeman, it was kind of a free fall for LSU of where are they going to go now? And they ended up going with, Durante Jones, who came in with a hell of a resume. It just never, he had never been a coordinator, or he was not a coordinator. It was on the Minnesota Vikings staff as a defensive backs coach, and kind of came down here a little bit out of his element. Didn't know what was going on with the situation with Orgeron, and the rest is history. But now Marcus Freeman is in a spot, and I think you saw it in the bowl game versus Oklahoma State where they were up 24, right? And the sideline looks pretty swaggy and everybody looks comfortable and everybody's jumping around and Freeman's got the headset around the neck and he looks the part, and then the game starts to happen. And you got to be a head coach on that level for that program without any experience. And look, man, I see what they're doing in recruiting, and they're cleaning up in recruiting. And for the first time in a long time, I think kids that wouldn't necessarily choose Notre Dame or not necessarily were paying attention to Notre Dame over the last couple of cycles are now having them on a short list. And some of them are even choosing to go there. Hell, they came down to Baton Rouge and took a 5-star talent in Jaden Ausberry off of LSU's campus at University High School. They're doing great in recruiting, but how many times have we, as LSU, whether you're covering the program or you're a fan out there, have seen number 1, number 2, number 3 recruiting classes come in to go 9-3, 9-4, 8-5, 8-4, right? I mean, you still got to coach them up. You still got to be in situations where you got to know what is going, you got to be able to think ahead, right? And the only way to think ahead from a sideline standpoint as a head coach is you got to be a head coach. You got to have those experiences that you can draw back on. I mean, it's kind of like being a parent, right? Like if you're not a parent out there, or if you're a young parent or about to be a parent, nobody can really tell you what it's truly going to be like until you get in it. Like, everybody can warn you about the 3 a.m. wake ups and not sleeping for the first 3 months and changing diapers in the middle of a crowd or the middle of of an airplane or whatever it may be. Just situations that pop up where you got to be a parent. Yeah, I mean, you can't run from it. But until you've lived it, until you've been in it, you can't really describe it to somebody. You can't tell them, like, hey, this is what to expect. Like, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess I understand. No, you don't understand if you've never been in it. Just like a head coach. Hey, man, if the game gets tight and you got a short, third down situation here, here's what you probably ought to do. You better milk that clock down a little bit before you get that play off and protect the lead, or whatever it may be. Whatever it may be. I mean, I can sit here and tell you about it all day, and you can, yeah. But until you get to that 3 minutes, third and short, and other sideline, Clemson staring at you, and you got to think, hey, man, I got to make this call with the game on the line, and you've got nothing to think back towards. You've got nothing to lean on. You've got no experience that you can draw back on, and you're the head coach at Notre Dame. Man, I think we saw a glimpse of it in the Fiesta Bowl, where that room got tight real quick. I mean, like, it shrunk up on him real quick. You could see all that jumping around, all that celebrating, that sideline all swagged out in the first half. There were a lot of bug eyes and people kind of looking around in the second half as this thing was just taking on water. And you could see from his standpoint, Marcus Freeman's, that, hell, I don't know what to do. I've never been here. I wish I could ask Brian Kelly, a guy that's been here for 30 years as a head coach and been at Notre Dame for a decade. Hey, man, what do we do right here? So, look, I get Brian Driscoll loving the new guy and saying that he's been, beating and stomping his feet to get Kelly out since 2020. But be careful what you wish for, bro. You know what I mean? Like, just throwing the winningest coach of all time at Notre Dame to the curb and saying, see ya, for a rookie that has no experience, you might want to rethink that proposition. And as much as you think LSU is a dumpster fire, and I understand from South Bend, Indiana, looking down at Baton Rouge, how you would perceive LSU to be a dumpster fire. And look, there's some smoldering ash still hanging around from what's been happening over the last couple of years. But I can tell you that the football program's trending in the right direction. And Brian Kelly's looking at a roster in a locker room right now, today, right now, that he's never had access to in his career. National championship teams at Notre Dame included. Appearances in the game included. So I don't know Brian Driscoll. I don't know the true feeling of what people felt like around Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. I wasn't studying it and immersed in it and looking at it. But from Baton Rouge, it looks a lot better than what LSU's had for the last decade. And if you're telling me you're trading Brian Kelly for Marcus Freeman, a rookie head coach with no experience, and you think you can just lob those bombs down to Baton Rouge without any type of reaction? I mean, bro, check your house first. I mean, you got one small sample size of your new guy, and he gagged on national television, on the national stage, gagged with a really good roster. And I know he's recruiting at a high level, but you still got to coach the game. And his first test of coaching the game, he failed. Kelly got a lot more passing grades than Freeman's ever even taken classes. So I get it. You want to come tell us how right you were in 2020, but
They went 11-2
in 2020.
Yeah.
Oh, he wanted to fire him
That's
for
funny.
going 11-2.
That's funny.
But don't you think this is more of the way that the breakup happened as opposed to them wanting to get rid of Brian Kelly? I mean, he essentially left you at the, he left you sleeping in the bed. Like, and he crawled out the window and said, "I'm going somewhere else. I'm going to Baton Rouge."
I'm going to her house.
Yeah, like this is fun. I got a better opportunity from somebody that I think I can marry.
You remember
Grady.
that blonde we saw the other day?
Yeah.
Grady says, Jordy, do you think LSU's roster is more talented than any other roster that Kelly had at Notre Dame? I'll tell you this. I can't speak in like certainty and say yes, 100%. But Andy Staples, who covers college football for The Athletic and has done this at a very much more national level than I ever have and covered it from a much more national scope, said that to me at SEC Media Days, and that's the first time I've ever thought that, said that. And the more I asked around at SEC Media Days to people like Staples and Bruce Feldman and people like that of, that type of knowledge of the game, they all agreed. They all said, look, don't get me wrong, he had really good teams at Notre Dame, but he never had Mason Smith, B.J. Ojolari, Ali Gay, and Jaquelin Roy on the same team. He never had Kayshawn Booty, Malik Neighbors, Jack Besh, and Jeray Jenkins on the same team. He never had the linebackers in guys like Harold Perkins and Greg Penn. And look, Manti Te'o's a good player. You know what I mean? He is a top pick. Really good player. But the guys that are around some of these stars that he had at Notre Dame, I just don't think that he did. What I can say to you, Grady, is that we could argue it. I don't think that it's definitive, that it's one way or the other. And the fact that it's an argument, I think, really kind of sides with it is. If this is his first team and he's already recruited to the level that he's had right now and has the commitments of the star power and talent of the prospects that he has in the boat already, and he's got the track record that we can go back on and judge him by, saying, man, I mean, like, dude's won everywhere he's been. Why the hell wouldn't he win here? I mean, Ed Ogeron and Les Miles won here.
Talk to it, daddy.
So they went in 2019-2020 when he allegedly wanted him fired. 11-2 Notre Dame was. 2020-2021 Notre Dame was 10-2. Got to get rid of him after that. And then 2021-2022 11-2. So he's had 3 10-win seasons, and Brian Driscoll said it's good.
Really 11-1 with Brian Kelly.
Oh yeah,
because he left before the bowl game.
That's right.
Before the bowl game.
All right, do we have Vernel? All right, Vernel Singleton coming up here as we were going to talk to the newest LSU graduate. We have a request into him. We talked to him over the last couple of days. I did talk to the audience about how do you ask the question about life after basketball for Big Vern.
I'm sure he's joined a video call before.
For sure. This cannot be the first one.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's doing the videos.
Remember our friends when we talk basketball here, and we are going to talk hoop with Big Vern. It is brought to you by our friend Daniel Newman over at Edward Jones. Get in touch with Daniel Newman today, daniel.newman@edwardjones.com, for any financial issues that you may be having or financial advice that you may be seeking. Seek out Daniel Newman over at Edward Jones. Edward Jones is located, Daniel's outlet of Edward Jones is located out in central Louisiana. Email him today, daniel.newman@edwardjones.com. We'll be back with more of the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. Red Stick Sports, a local staple in Baton Rouge to all sports fans, was founded back in 1981 and has remained a family business for over 40 years. Today, they still have the great selection on the floor, but they're also a leader in custom apparel for businesses, sports teams, and other groups. Take it from us, everybody over here at FM Digital Media. They help us out with all of our apparel. Let them help you out today. Go ask for Cody over at Red Stick Sports. Check him out online at redsticksports.biz. I was embarrassed about my smile. Are you unhappy at yours? Do you not smile back at yourself? I called my friend, Dr. Spillers, over at Johnson Spillers. He fixed my smile, and now everywhere I go, people are complimenting it after the work that Dr. Spillers and the staff did to my mouth. They can do it to yours. Get in touch with them. JohnsonSpillers.com. 2 locations, one in Gonzales, one in Baton Rouge. Easy to find them. JohnsonSpillers.com. We love the crew over at Fresh Chef Kitchen. Chef Shane and his crew dropping off the meals every Monday here to FM Digital Media, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner. Me or the crew's going through our meals over at Fresh Chef Kitchen. Their weekly pre-order, freshly made meals, or you can walk into the cooler over there on Airline Highway. They have that fresh, same service over there at Fresh Chef Eats. FreshChefEats.com is where you can find them online. Fresh Chef Kitchen. Tell them you heard it right here on the Jordy Culotta Show. All right, welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. Remember to hit that like button, share button, comment button. It's always cool to catch up with some former LSU stars, as we talked to last week and have been talking to the last couple of weeks. Harvey Williams, former LSU tailback. It's been cool to catch up with him. And really looking forward to our next conversation, man. All of these conversations take me way back to when I was a kid and going into the Maravich Center, which Vernel Singleton was able to do a couple of weeks back to grab his degree after so long after leaving Baton Rouge, which I know was a cool moment for the Natchez native. And now checking in from Florida is former Tiger standout and now graduate of LSU. Looking great this morning. Vernel Singleton. Big Vern, how are you, bro? Good morning.
What's up? What's up, everybody? Good to see you.
It's great to see you, man. Tell me about how exciting that was for you to accomplish what you did and walking across the stage a couple of weeks ago and getting that degree.
It was incredible. I actually wasn't able to be there, but getting the degree was tremendous for me. After being out of school for so long, tackling that task was something that I didn't think I didn't have a lot of confidence, honestly. I won't say I didn't have confidence. I didn't know what to expect, because when you're out of school that long, you lose a lot of credits, and so I didn't know. I just decided to go, one step at a time, and to get it done. And I just knew I wasn't going to stop until it was done. And I had a lot of support, mainly Coach Brown, staying in my ear, motivating me constantly as he does. And we got it done, and that was that. And so I'm very happy about it.
You mentioned Coach Brown, and obviously the relationship. He recruited you to LSU. He coached you at LSU, and then the relationship with him long after you left to keep you motivated to come back. What were those conversations like in the meantime? I'd imagine that space was filled with a lot of encouragement from Coach Brown. What were those times like before you were able to get the degree?
Oh man, I mean, he's just one of those personalities that if he's on your side, he's never going to stop. As in my case, I mean, he always stayed in my ear. It was always about the degree. It was always when you're coming back. No matter how long it had been, and no matter how far of a distance we were away from each other, he never lost contact. He never let our relationship diminish. He would just always call and check in on me, and constantly remind me about my degree. And so I really appreciated that. I mean, because at times, when you're going through this life and you're doing okay, you can think just that. Oh, okay, I'm okay. I don't really need it. So yeah, I'm making a little bit of money. You know, my kids are good. My family is okay. Why would I need it? But what I learned in this whole process is that I did need it, and you know, it did help me to become a better person, transform me, answer some questions that I'd had all my life, and ultimately, like I said, it answered those questions that had been haunting me, and taught me some things that I didn't know I needed to learn.
Wow.
So, you know, I would definitely recommend. I recommend it to all my teammates who have not gotten their degree to consider it. It doesn't matter how old you are. You always have the ability to learn, to grow, get better and better. My mental state is definitely much more stable and better. Like, I learned a lot of things that I just did not know. And that sounds weird coming from a 52-year-old man, but I did.
Vernel, were you on campus or was this all online? Were you able to interact with teachers during this time period, or was it all done via digital?
Yeah. So my intention starting out was to come back to campus, and that was the plan. And then COVID hit. So the pandemic shut a lot of that down. Me coming back to campus, I really looked forward to coming back to campus, and I set up things to come back and to do it that way. But during the pandemic, everything shut down. So, you know, we had to kind of reconfigure some things. And so, yeah, I did it, most of it, I did all of it online. And it worked out, actually, because, yeah, what I discovered is, I was able to communicate just fine with my professors, counselors, advisors, and everybody. We all, you know, just figured it out, and it worked.
It sounds like this was a very enlightening process for you. What did you learn most about yourself throughout this?
I've always had confidence in myself that I could do anything. You know, coming out of Natchez, Mississippi, you have to feel a certain way about yourself. I mean, I've been underrated, told what I cannot do all my life. So, I just looked at that this way too. You know, even though I put myself in this situation by leaving LSU when I did to go play ball without having my degree, what I learned is, you see, to get a little bit more personal, coming to LSU, when I came to LSU, I brought along some problems, some mental adversity that I had been going through. Nobody knew about it. I mean, I guess we all, if you grew up in the 70s and early 80s, I mean, I went through a situation where I brought along some mental, like I said, some mental issues along with me to LSU. And if I just would have stayed in school long enough, I probably could have solved it.
Wow.
Like I did this time. And so what it was is, I grew up in a domestic violence situation, and it kind of ended up affecting me mentally. The effects of domestic violence on a child. I mean, you have certain things, certain issues that you're going to have to deal with in answering some questions. So I got a lot of answers in coming back to school.
Wow.
And taking the classes that I ended up taking and going in the direction that I ended up going in as far as psychology, sociology, and communication. And those are my three minors. I'm an interdisciplinary studies major. And those particular classes helped me to put things in perspective and gave me a lot of insight. And ultimately actually cured me of, gave me the answers that I was looking for. And again, helped me put a lot of things in perspective and gave me a lot of insight into the things that I was dealing with and answered a lot of the questions that that haunted me through the years.
Vern, congratulations, man. That's a great story, man. Equipped with that, what do you do with it? How do you spread that that's powerful. That's power, bro. That is power.
So yeah, Jordy, I'm actually, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I am writing a book. And in that book, I detail a lot of these things, and I talk about, what happened to me. And again, if you grew up in it's a sign of the times at that time, right? These types of things weren't talked about. It was just how things were done. I mean, listen, my parents are, to me, great people. Mm-hmm. My father certainly, I certainly look up to him, and but alcohol is an igniter, and sometimes it hinders communication, and it causes people to act in ways that they shouldn't. And so what I do with it now is I write about it. I talk about situations that I was in. I talk about the effects of it, and yeah, that's what I do with it. And considering the times that we're in, where mental health is so prevalent now, and it seems that we need more mental health providers, I think I'm going to go in that direction and help and bring help where help is needed.
When was the first time in your life that you recognized, I need help mentally? I am struggling from a mental standpoint. Do you remember the first time you recognized that personally? Was it when you were in college?
I didn't know that I needed any. I didn't know that I needed any help. I think when you experience trauma in your life, I think that a lot of the times you just deal with it internally, and you don't exactly know that you need help. You're always taught to be tough, and certainly I was taught that just to be tough and to get through it. And like I said, it's just a sign of the times. You don't actually know that you need help. You just know that you're dealing with certain things. Like, for example, certain daydreams that you have that are so vivid and so real, and the emotions, they take you right back to the point of the original trauma. And without knowing those things, you start to think that maybe something is just wrong with you personally, individually. You're just some kind of defect that's going on. But when I got to LSU, I just dealt with these things internally. And the thing about basketball, though, is that it's a great way to, when you get on the basketball court, you don't think about anything. Mm-hmm. You just go and you just play, and
it's a release, right?
It's a great, of course. I mean, and you just go and you just play. And so basketball was that for me. It was my counselor, my advisor, my best friend, everything. When I got on the court, I didn't think about anything. It was off the court. Mm-hmm. It's when those lights aren't on. It's when you're laying in your bed. It's in those quiet moments. And then with some of the effects of being in a domestic violence situation, you have intrusive daydreams. And certainly I went through those types of things. So I just deal with it internally. But like I said, you don't know that you need help. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that I needed anything. I just said, oh, okay, well, hopefully they'll go away and it'll stop happening sooner or later. It never did. It was the questions, the burning questions inside, that you have to get these answers to in order to begin healing. To find the answers to solve these burning questions that's in your head. And that's what happened to me. And, I'm so thankful that I went back to school. I'm so thankful that I went the direction that I went as far as studying psychology, the brain, sociology, and the ability to communicate with communication. And it just all seemed like it was just God's plan now. And I am definitely equipped to go out and help someone else. My goal is to, millions of kids, unfortunately, out there are going through similar issues. And I think my advocacy for to stop domestic violence, to bring attention to the things that may be happening inside a child's mind is very important. And that's my intent, to be an advocate, to write about it. Like I said, I am working on a book right now. It has a bunch of things in it. The central theme of it is, yes, of course, domestic violence and the effects that it may have on a child's mental health. But there are also several other things that are in it that a lot of people are going to be interested in. Very interesting stuff. I've had an interesting life. I
didn't know how we were going to get there. Thank you for bringing us there, Vernel.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I've had an interesting life full of a whole bunch of things that I'm sure a lot of people want to know about. And listen, I've never been shy about these things. I've never been. I just haven't had the opportunity to talk about them. But it's coming. It's coming, and I'm not running and ducking and dodging. And like I said, it's a lot of interesting things that I have done. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to speaking on it more.
I've enjoyed your work for 30 years now, Vernel, going back to LSU. Vern, take me back to, because, man, when you were at LSU, that it is really kind of why I do what I do now, was because of just the passion that I fell in love with the university and the basketball program at the time. The football program was really no good. It was really about y'all. It was about what Dale had going on with you and Jamie Brandon and Shaq and Stanley and Chris and Maurice Williamson and just that whole crew. There's so many memories that I can draw back. What was your time like for you at LSU?
Wow. Man, what was my time like at LSU? A dream, really. Coming from Natchez, Mississippi, into a program that I had idolized. I never thought about playing for I never wanted to play for any other school other than Louisiana State University. Wow. I wasn't this highly recruited guy coming out of school, but for some reason or another, I just had my eyes set on LSU. I just wanted to go to LSU, and I think even if I had to go walk on, I probably would have did that. Mm-hmm. I just really, really wanted to play for Coach Dale Brown. They had this show that came on, the Dale Brown basketball show. They did it after the games, and I used to watch that from my 11th grade year, 12th grade year. I used to watch it and dream about playing basketball for Dale Brown and LSU. And that God blessed me with that, to bring that true. And so getting to LSU, I just felt like I was living a dream. And then obviously when I stepped on the court, I just always felt like I was going to get an opportunity to play. I knew I was going to play harder than anybody. I wasn't going to let anybody outplay me. They may be more skilled than me, but they were not going to outwork me. They certainly were not going to out hustle me. And that's the attitude I brought to it. And I wanted to do anything and everything to just stay on the court. I wanted to be on the court. I did not want to be some guy who just, lingered on the bench. Although now, everybody has a role.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to play my role. And certainly I did that. I thought I did that well. But you never know, because when you're in school, you don't know what people are saying about you. You don't hear the announcers as they speak about you. As a matter of fact, I am just now seeing some of the games that we played in.
Wow.
No,
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Take a break real quick. We'll be right back. I'm going to get Vernel right back.
Hey, Baton Rouge, when traveling through Natchez, Mississippi, whether you need to fill up your vehicle or your belly, stop by Go-Mart and On The Go Deli. Go-Mart has clean restrooms, community coffee, an awesome beer cave, and a great selection of anything you might need on your trip. So stop by Go-Mart at 4 Sergeant Prentice Drive as you're entering Natchez on the left, and visit Tom and Wright Granning and their awesome team at Go-Mart.
We've seen the BK takeover stuff from LSU and social media, and really in his short time in Baton Rouge, there's been a lot of people embracing his approach to building this roster. What's it like to recruit alongside him?
Oh, it's been great. Coach has been awesome to me because he lets me be myself when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to coaching. He lets his coaches coach, lets his coaches recruit. So I have no complaints on that end. And when I need him to get in touch with a kid, he's there for me. The communication line has been great. He's just been nothing but supportive.
But this opportunity was different. You have a chance to come to a place with unbelievable tradition, work for the winningest head coach in college football. Just be at a state. I've never been at a state where football's king, and if you just dominate your state, you're going to get some of the best players that there are.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think, getting through spring, I mean, most of it was obviously just installing the offense. And I think all 4 guys really made some strides in terms of that and showed a lot of positives. Obviously, which, you guys get to talk about all the time. So you guys,
Sure.
But all 4 have done a great job. They did. I think they really did a really nice job in spring of taking strides forward individually, and everybody's different in terms of what they need to get better at and what they need to show. And then move it into summer, and I love the way they're working right now in the weight room for Coach Flint. But like I said, I think spring a lot was everything was new for everybody. So especially at the beginning, there wasn't as much evaluation, say the first few days, get into the flow, and then I think we got some good opportunities for some guys to get some reps, and I think everybody showed some positives.
Hey, Baton.
All right, welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show. Sorry about that technical difficulties. One of the great interviews that we've been in, and Vernel Singleton, I got to tell you, man, we'll get you out of here because I know we've taken a lot of your morning up and a lot of time, and we appreciate you spending some minutes with us. But a lot of the listeners have written, have typed in, and I wanted to make sure that you knew this before you get out of here. Aunt Marshall says the depth of this interview is admirable. I admire the transparency and vulnerability. Great interview. Grady says, Jordy, tell Vernel that we, the listeners, appreciate him very much for speaking up. Duran Tross says, mental health issues run far deep, especially in the African-American community. Unfortunately, it's taboo to ask for help. I appreciate Vernel's truthfulness this morning on this platform. There is a lot of gratitude for hearing your story this morning, Vern. I just wanted to make sure that you knew from us how much we appreciate you sharing that and coming on with us. you were a legend in my eyes when you were at LSU. I was a kid, and you were almost immortal to me. So to talk to you here with a LSU degree is a really cool experience for our show and for what we got going on. I had no idea that it was going to be this, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Jordy. I appreciate you guys giving me a platform to talk about it, and great to see you guys.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again. We'll do it again soon. I can't wait to read
Congratulations.
it. And I can't wait to read the book, bro.
Oh yeah, man.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
have a great day.
You got to cop that, man. You got to cop that.
Absolutely, that's done.
Make a movie.
Hey, when it's published, make sure we you come back on. You come back on, and we'll promote it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll hit you up.
All right, man. I'll see you. There he is, Vernel Singleton, checking in as we had to get him back on, man. I had to tell him, thank him for that interview. I mean, look, we were going in talking about it this morning, like with the stuff we were talking about. It was, I think somebody pointed that out, that, right when the interview started, somebody was like, I read, somebody was like, Jordy, this interview's a lot deeper than Jordy thought it was going to be.
That's what she said.
And it was, but it was, man. I mean, like all that stuff went out the window when he dove into that. And I appreciate that very much. Like, I appreciate someone who can talk about that. I've been in therapy for 10 years, for a decade. In fact, I was just thinking about it. I was thinking about my relationship with my therapist is almost one of the longest relationships I've ever had in my life. Really. You know what I mean? Like
Tony Soprano over here.
Professional. And I mean, not even like that, but I mean, just the relationship. And it hadn't just been one therapy, just with therapy, right? Like just, giving that part of my life a chance and speaking about that stuff. And a lot of the stuff that Vernel speaks on, I think a lot of us can relate to, but a lot of us just don't say it out loud. And I agree with some of our listeners who wrote in. I mean, it's taboo sometimes to talk about that. I rarely talk about it publicly in a setting, where people are talking about therapy, because you kind of curl up and you don't want to talk about it. So for Vernel to come on this morning, and like I said, I had no idea where that interview was going to go. I mean, I wanted to ask him about the Shaq fight at Broussard Hall. I mean, I wanted to ask him about some of the things back at LSU, but that just sometimes, in
interviews like a river.
Absolutely, you just gotta wade through it, man.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that took us to a really cool place.
And it felt like school was more of therapy than anything for him. It felt like it unlocked a lot of what he had experienced in the past. He's like, oh, I can actually put like a technical term on what I was going through, as opposed to just being like, I guess I'm just like, I'm struggling. Yeah. Everything that it was almost like he was describing PTSD for what like whenever he would sit and get just like in a daydream, and he would bring him back to a very visceral spot in his life. Yeah. And he didn't know how to put a finger on it.
Yeah, and I didn't know how he was explaining that. I didn't know if it meant like just like the portion of going back to school did something mentally, but like the more he explained it, it was like the actual
learned what was happening.
Yeah, like the psychology of it. Like he learned and like unlocked some stuff for him mentally. So it was, man.
He looked great.
Thanks to Vernel Singleton
So
for coming by. Yeah, and didn't know how we were going to get there.
But we got there.
Bro. Speaking of getting there, my guy Ross Jackson is everywhere. If you are not locked on the Saints podcast, which is titled Locked On Saints Podcast, hosted by Ross Jackson, then you just don't want any Saints information, I guess, because my man's feeding it to you daily. He's giving you breakdowns. Hell, through training camp, he's been giving it to you twice a day, going old school, 90s for you. 2-a-days. And it's got a lot of cool information. And going into the third preseason game with the Chargers on deck in the newly renovated dome, it'll be cool to see it on Friday night. We'll be there. We'll be, in fact, in our Caesars Sportsbook Friends suite, and we're looking forward to getting over there. I don't know who we're going to watch play, and that's why we bring in the man, Ross Jackson. He's on Twitter, at Ross Jackson Nola. RJ, it's good to see you, bro. How are you? Good morning.
Hey, good to see you guys too. Good morning to you. Apparently, I'm everywhere too much.
It's all good.
Sometimes.
It's all good. About that. We appreciate your promptness, bro. We do not do the time thing very well, so when somebody does it, it kind of shocks us a little. It shocks the system.
Get out of there.
So, yeah, right. Take your responsibility somewhere else. Why don't you? All right, Ross. We're going Friday night, man. What are we going to see? I heard you go down the checklist on, I believe, yesterday's podcast. You went down kind of both sides of the ball of who you believe we will be seeing on Friday night. But let's just start on the offensive side of the ball with the headliners, Kamara, Thomas, the crew. Who gets some run, if at all?
Yeah, look, I don't think that you're going to see Michael Thomas. We haven't seen him at practice at all this week. As Dennis Allen confirmed for us not too long ago, it's a little bit of a hamstring that he's dealing with. So I don't think you're going to see Michael Thomas tomorrow night. I'd be surprised if you saw Alvin Kamara tomorrow night. They're still trying to figure out who's going to be that kind of third running back there. So getting a look at the running backs on the roster, especially with Kirk Merritt having just moved to that position, makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, look, running back is just a high contact position. And so you want to keep your superstar guy ready to go for week one. He did get a lot of work in during practices. So to me, that's either it's hard to walk the line, right? Are you getting a lot of work in practice because you're getting ready for the game, or are you getting a lot of work in practice because you're not going to be in the game? So you're trying to get that work in during the practice. So it's kind of this weird balance that you have to watch. But considering his position, I think that maybe we don't necessarily see too much of Alvin Kamara, if at all. I was originally on the boat that we wouldn't be seeing Jameis Winston on Friday, but after watching him yesterday in kind of that last day of practice, and then, seeing all of the scrambles, seeing him slide and pop back up on Tuesday, which was a big thing for him, and then just hearing him speak yesterday as he told us he wants to be out there, I'm starting to think that we might see Jameis Winston for at least this series Friday up against the Chargers.
How far out in front is James Hurst at left tackle?
I think that the way that I would say it is that if James Hurst and Trevor Penning are both healthy to start the season, that James Hurst is your starter at left tackle. I just think that Trevor Penning's question marks in the pass protection area of the game, which is what we knew that he was going to have to work on in the NFL, right? It's not a mystery at all. It's not a disappointment or anything. It's just that with that being the big question mark, and knowing that you have a quarterback that's coming off of a foot injury and, well, really a lower leg injury, right? The ACL tear from last year and everything. I don't know that you really mix those two things going into, the top of the season. That doesn't mean that Trevor Penning doesn't eventually become the starter during the year. And if James Hurst still needs time to recover from his foot injury, that Trevor Penning can't start week one. There's certainly a way that happens. But if they're both healthy, I think James Hurst is the safer start to start off the season. Now, we'll see what happens over these next couple of weeks of practice as well, of course.
I remember watching Kirk Merritt in recruiting a couple of years ago, and he was dynamic, man. I mean, he was a all-time tester. But now in the NFL here in the preseason, it looks like he's making a run at a spot on the 53. They're trying him at different spots. Where does he fit in?
I think that he kind of fits into the Ty Montgomery role that we've seen the Saints treasure over the course of the past couple of years. And I don't think that that's just a mechanism of Sean Payton. I think that that is a position or a skill set that's amplified by the New Orleans Saints scheme and system as a whole. And so I think that, with Pete Carmichael still running that and with that offensive system still being very familiar to what it has been since 2006, I think that role still makes sense for the New Orleans Saints going into 2022. And a guy like Kirk Merritt shows that he can fill that. He could be a guy that takes up a wide receiver spot on the depth chart, for instance, but has the running back versatility, or you have him designated as a running back, but he has the wideout versatility. In either case, I think that's the role that he fills. And look, I think that his most direct competition in terms of making the roster isn't really a running back. It's how many wide receivers are you going to keep? Right? If you're willing to keep Kirk Merritt in as a wide receiver, then that means that he is effectively in direct competition with guys like Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith. I would say more particularly Traquan Smith. If you keep him in as a running back, then keeping 4 running backs is not out of the ordinary for the New Orleans Saints, but it does mean that they might only keep 5 wide receivers as opposed to 6 wide receivers. So in any case, Kirk Merritt making the roster might impact the wide receiver numbers and who's in that building or who ends up making that group. So I think that that's maybe where the competition is, but I do think that he has a role. I do think that he fits. And I do think that the New Orleans Saints are trying to find ways to maybe, have all those avenues to keep him around. Dennis Allen talked about if you can keep one guy on the roster, but he fills a couple of roster spots, that's, exponential value. And Kirk Merritt kind of fills 3 because he works as a receiver. He works as a running back now. And then you also have what he can do for you as a returner. He had the big 59-yard kick return against the Packers last weekend.
It's crazy how microscopic the numbers are, like 47 through 53. How many are open in your opinion? Like 3 spots, 4 spots? How many are really open?
Yeah, I'd say maybe a handful. I'd give an extra couple there just based on the fact that special teams is always going to be a factor, right? Like some of those bottom of the safety depth chart spots are going to be made up. Bottom of the cornerback depth chart is going to be made up by those that can contribute on special teams. Even the bottom of the running back at depth chart, right? Guys like Dwayne Washington have been an example of that. And I wouldn't even consider Dwayne Washington at the bottom of the depth chart. He's just, been RB3 for a long time. And so, I would probably say maybe 6 at most, 6, maybe 7 spots, considering what special teams brings you. But outside of that, I mean, even most of those might already be at least penciled in at this point. So I don't know that there's a lot of spots on this roster left.
Ross, I was listening yesterday morning, and you said a stat. I had to rewind it twice to make sure I heard it correctly. Jameis Winston's only thrown 2 interceptions throughout training camp. Are we overlooking how good his training camp has been?
Yeah, look, and just to make sure that I gave you the correct information, it was 2 interceptions in team drills. He's thrown some in one-on-ones and 7-on-7, stuff like that. But 2 interceptions in team drills. Now, they were back-to-back. They were in back-to-back days, but they were also good decisions. Yeah, but they were also good decisions. I mean, the one that he threw that C.J. Gardner-Johnson picked off was just sheer great play by C.J. Gardner-Johnson leaping in front of Jarvis Landry to make a one-handed interception. And then the next one was Tyrann Mathieu on Tuesday in the indoor facility, which was Juwan Johnson crossing across the back of the end zone. And it was a 4th and 5. So you got to throw the ball. Throwing the ball away is not an option in that situation. And so they were simulating, actual game situations. And so, yeah, I do think that we are. And I do think that this is something that we saw from him last year as well. Remember, 14 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, highest touchdown percentage, lowest interception percentage. And of course, was leading the league when it came to red zone passer rating as well. And so now we're seeing all of that carry over into the 2022 offseason to where he's not putting the ball at risk. And I would say that very likely, I'll have to go through and look at all of the passes that I've charted from him, but I wouldn't be surprised if the running back position is his most targeted position so far when it comes to his passes that he's thrown in training camp. He has done what it is that the New Orleans Saints like to do, which is attack the short and intermediate area of the field and attack defenses laterally as opposed to vertically. But he is able to uncork and go vertically when it makes sense. And so I think that discipline that we're seeing from him is a big enough storyline that should make you feel very comfortable with Jameis Winston going into 2022, at least until we see otherwise.
Speaking of going vertical, I expect the defensive backfield for the Saints to be a no-fly zone with all these DBs that they got back there. Will I see Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu on Friday night?
I would love to see both of them on Friday night. I think that it makes a lot of sense. Tyrann certainly spoke as if he was playing on Friday. He kind of said a couple of things that made it sound like he at least expects to be there. But of course, that's always the player mentality, right? The player mentality is to prepare like you're playing at all times. And so, it could just be that. But I think seeing both of them on the field, at least for a series, would be great, not only for those of us that are, following the team or for folks that are fans of the team. It's great for the team to see what Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu can do out on the field together, because you're replacing 2 safety positions in the same offseason with players that are completely new to your system. That's a tall task. That's usually a big thing to ask for. But, look, you've got 2 very talented players there. And so I think if you get the opportunity to see them Friday night, you should take advantage of that.
Speaking of the defense, now that you've had an extended time to see these DBs playing together with, I know Lattimore's not out there every day, but you've seen a Debo and Lattimore and now Mathieu and May on the back end playing in what we already know is a very solid front seven. How good, what's the ceiling on this defense going into the season?
I don't know that I can find the ceiling on this defense. This defense is really, really good, and I expect them to be a top 5 defense this year based upon what we're seeing so far in camp. Obviously, it's all got to translate out onto the field. It's got to translate into game action, game situations. Players have to stay healthy. There's a lot of caveats to it. But if things go as planned, this New Orleans Saints defense should be a top 5 defense going in, finishing up 2022. The secondary has been outstanding. Paulson and Debo is getting lots of comparisons to, superstar players, but he's also looking like it out on the field. You want to see him convert maybe some of those pass breakups to interceptions, of course, but we'll see what happens when he gets out on the field there. He is a former wide receiver, so it's not like he doesn't have the hands. You should have the skill set to be able to convert some of those and turn them into takeaways. Bradley Roby's been outstanding. He's got 6 interceptions on camp, throughout camp so far, and he's the third, cornerback, and not even a slot cornerback, because that's CJ's job. So I think that, you consider what CJ Gardner-Johnson's able to do for you, and the ability that you have with with him and, of course, Tyrann Mathieu playing up against the line of scrimmage, and then who the front 7 is already, right? You already know how good this front 7 is, to have had 40 sacks every year since Ryan Nielsen showed up in 2017. And then you look at what, your second level is led by DeMario Davis. there is no ceiling for this defense, or if there is one, I can't find it yet. But, it's all got to come together on the field, but they should be one of the best defensive units yet again in 2022.
What a luxury Will Lutz is, and it highlights when he is out how much you miss that part of the game. I mean, he provides, I can't imagine the sense of relief that gives Dennis Allen in his first year as a head coach here, that he's back and healthy.
Yeah, I mean, look, he has gone 49 of 51 over the course of
Is that good?
Preseason and
Jesus.
Camp. Yeah. and that includes, of course, the 59-yard field goal that he kicked against the Green Bay Packers, which is 1 yard beyond his career long, if I'm not mistaken. I believe his regular season career long is 58 yards. And so you look at what he's done so far throughout camp, what he's done so far throughout preseason. He ended the 2-minute drills that they did in yesterday's practice to wrap up practice. For both of those, it was a 57-yard field goal and a 31-yard field goal. And so you have that. You have the extra point sort of. And I think this is the other piece of it too, right? Like, yes, he can come in and he can kick the field goals. He can get 3 points on the board for you. He's somebody that you feel, that you can rely on in clutch situations as well. But beyond that, extra points were something you could not take for granted last year.
Right.
And we saw the Saints lose games based on the fact that they couldn't convert extra points. You think about the Titans game, they felt so uncomfortable with their kicking situation that they had to go for 2. And the Saints are like 0 of 19 or 0 of 13 in terms of their last, in terms of all of their last 2-point conversion attempts. They haven't converted a 2-point conversion in years at this point. No. And so with that, you don't see the New Orleans Saints. Yeah, right. And so we don't see the New Orleans Saints in a situation here to where, they're taking kicking for granted. But now all of a sudden, you've got Will Lutz in the building and, fans are checking their phones during extra points again and,
right.
Things like that. So it's a relief. It's a big time relief, I'm sure, for the organization to have Will Lutz back there.
Last one, I'll get you out of here, Ross. Thanks for the time this morning. This linebacker crew seems like they got a lot of competition there, and Pete Werner's missed significant time. What do they do here on decision day? How do they handle Werner here?
Yeah, I think, I think Werner is still going to be your starter once he's healthy, but I do think that the way that you compensate for any injury concerns or further injury concerns around Werner is by, filling up your depth at linebacker with veteran players. And I think that the veteran experience of guys like John Bostic, the veteran experience of a guy like Eric Wilson, who's been outstanding so far throughout camp. And then, of course, even a guy like Chase Hansen, who maybe isn't a veteran in terms of playing time standards, but he's very familiar with the system, although he's been managing an injury as well. I think that the experience that you have with people either in your system or people across the NFL, like Eric Wilson and John Bostic, that's how you kind of make up for any of the concerns or question marks you might have health related when it comes to Pete Werner. So I do think Pete Werner is still your starter. There's no question about that once he's healthy. But if you're worried about the injuries at all, then you build up that depth with veteran experienced players that could step in. And don't sleep on Caden Ellis either. I know Caden Ellis is somebody that has mostly been utilized as a strong side linebacker, but Dennis Allen has been very complimentary of his development as an off-ball linebacker as well. So seeing him in, a couple of different packages and things like that, utilized in a few different ways at the second level, just speaks to the furthering of the versatility that the New Orleans Saints predicate their defense on.
Marrero, stand up. Great shirt, bro.
What's back?
At Ross Jackson Nola is where you find him on Twitter. Make sure you're checking out the pod every single day. It's there for you. Locked On Saints podcast. He is the host. It's great. It's awesome. It's a great listen. Check him out, and you can hear him here routinely on the Jordy Culotta Show. Thanks, man. We'll see you soon.
Appreciate you guys. Take care. Stay safe.
All right, man. There he is. Ross Jackson checking in down from New Orleans. That brought to you by Barker Brothers Plumbing and Works. Barker Brothers Plumbing and Works, 776-2431, 225 area code. Remember the number stored in your phone. That is your plumber. If you mention the Jordy Culotta Show, they will save 15%. You'll save 15% on the bottom line. All plumbing they can help you with. Residential, commercial, industrial. Get in touch with them today. 776-2431. 225 area code, no social media, no website. They are number one and a number two business. They're the best. Barker Brothers Plumbing and Works. We got to cut out of here. For Stewie, for Lloyd, Carpool Queen just showed up. We're heading across town. We're heading to a meeting. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning. We will be back with you at some point today. Just pay attention to social media. At some point, Shay will be through here. We'll be talking recruiting. It's Thursday. Rohan Show, where my dog's at, coming up at 6 o'clock. So make sure you tune in tonight. We're into the kennel. Hit that like button, share button, comment button. We'll be with you back. We'll be back with you at some point. Later.
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 Later. Later.